What's up? So I got asked the Pittsburgh Steelers 2006 versus the Denver Broncos 2016. Which team was more impressive if I was going based on it? Denver 2016. Even though both quarterbacks that won didn't look that good. Ben Roethlisberger played that game against Seattle like he had a hangover, and Peyton Manning was just washed. Um, there really wasn't. I mean, Randall L was probably the best quarterback, threw the best pass for Pittsburgh that game. That Pittsburgh game was controversial because there's a lot of suspect calls that worked against Seattle. Seattle didn't do a whole lot on offense. I mean, they had the one negated for interference in the end zone, but um, it was a very suspect, typical Pittsburgh still like it was bought and paid for a Super Bowl. Uh, their defense was pretty good though. I will say that they didn't let Seattle do a whole lot, but their offense stunk for the most part. Jerome Bettis did okay, nothing special. Denver, Carolina. At Denver's defense, it was all about Von Miller. He was beasting. Of course, that last play when it was like a hot ball and Cam Newton wouldn't stick his head in there, and that pretty much sealed the deal. Peyton Manning was just basically asked not to turn the ball over because he was on his last legs. He was definitely at the end of the road. So that's how I remember it. They both were ugly Super Bowls, you know. Asking me who I thought was the better team. Now, interestingly, if you asked me about the runner up teams, Carolina and Seattle, that would have been a more compelling story. Both of them had a one. Because Carolina had only lost one game up to that point. And Seattle had a pretty good season. Matt Hasselbeck was actually doing pretty good. I think the runner up teams were more compelling than the teams that won. Because again, neither team really showed me a lot on offense. It was the defense. But considering Pittsburgh was a six seed and a wild card and how they did it, and Troy Polamalu was all over the place and they came up big. Theirs was more impressive in the sense of how low they were, but Denver had the better defense. Von Miller at that time was beasting. I mean, he flattened Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game. Gronk and them were held like a blanket. That Broncos defense, Wade Phillips did a great job. So I would say that the Denver, if I'm going based on overall, I think Denver had more going for them. If I was gonna pick who was the better team that won the Super Bowl, I wasn't impressed with that Pittsburgh team. Looked like they got a token Super Bowl win. You know, some people still talk about that Super Bowl to this day. They still think the Steelers really were stealing that one. It gave Mike Bill Cowher his Super Bowl before he retired to the CBS booth and desk. So Gary Kubiak was the coach of the Denver Broncos that won that Super Bowl, and he retired, I think, the following year. But they both were lackluster wins. I mean, I'm sitting around like thinking about that, you know. Now, respectively, now those were uh, 20 and 10 years ago, respectively, and both Super Bowls were kind of just dull, you know. That one with Denver and Carolina, I had two buddies who were both fans of both teams respectively, and it was not a memorable Super Bowl. Not memorable at all. Cam Newton had an MVP season, but he looked anything but that, and you know. But I think that if I had to bet, I think Denver was the better of the two, and we're doing that. Sometimes I get asked about teams from a decade to a plus to compare how they would have fared, and I think the Broncos had enough defense to beat what Pittsburgh was, especially if Roethlisberger played like that, like he did in that Super Bowl. He played better in the next Super Bowl against Arizona. That Super Bowl was entertaining and wild, but this one wasn't. But anyway, uh, Denver hasn't been back since though. Been getting better though. Now let me know what you think between those two teams. Who would have won if it was a Super Bowl between the two Super Bowl winners? Pittsburgh in '06 and Denver in 16. Let me know in the comments below. Please hit like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another. Share if you like. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out one time. Peace.